tackling tough topics to help you think reasonably about life's most important issues. This is Thinker Sensitive. Welcome to Thinker Sensitive. My name is Ryan Ragazine, and I am honored to be your host. So, last week's episode was a little bit longer, and this week's episode is going to be a little bit shorter, partly because I don't have as much time this week. Halfway through the week, I'm going to be traveling back home for a wedding, and so I just have a limited amount of time this week, and so it's nice to have a shorter episode. The last couple episodes, I've been talking about division and unity. As a society, we have a propensity to focus on what divides us instead of on what unites us. And we also have a proclivity to seek self-interest over the common good. This episode will be the final thing I say on the matter for a while. Today, I want to focus on the notion of common ground. As some of you may know, I'm a musician and a songwriter. I've been playing and writing music now for over 20 years, probably somewhere between 20 and 25. Over the course of that time, I've had the privilege of playing in a few different bands. A band can only function well, it can only thrive and prosper if the group can find common ground. The challenge is that each member is unique. A band is made up of different cultural backgrounds, different musical tastes and preferences, different methods, different ideas, different visions, goals, and aspirations, and different levels of commitment and buy-in. The solution to these differences is usually to find the common denominator, the thing that you can all agree upon and get behind, the thing that brings you together, and to find unity and camaraderie in that common denominator. Within the context of a band, an example of this might be finding unity in the genre of music that you're playing. Despite all the differences, maybe all of you love playing jazz music, or all of you love blues rock, and you can all rally around this common denominator. Without any common ground, the band wouldn't be able to function. Discord, lack of agreement, selfishness, ego, and a lack of compromise would slowly disintegrate the band over time. Or the band would never be able to get off the ground in the first place. I believe that the same is true for societies and nations. Abraham Lincoln, echoing the words of Jesus of Nazareth, once said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Is our country not divided? Does this division not chip away at the foundation? Are we not in danger of a potential collapse at some point? It's hard to have a healthy society, a healthy democracy, without a willingness to find common ground, without any semblance of unity and camaraderie, a willingness to work together rather than against one another. But how do we find common ground in such a radically diverse society? Why should we care about common ground? What positive consequences stem from finding common ground? And what negative consequences follow from ignoring it? These are the questions that we'll be tackling on this week's episode. As I mentioned last week, there is no doubt great diversity and disagreement on even a lot of basic notions of truth and morality in our radically heterogeneous society. This leads to a lot of issues on both the national and state levels. During elections, There are a lot of unhappy people in our society. Following a state election, half of the state feels like their vote didn't count. Following a presidential election, half of the country feels like they aren't represented. States are divided into urban and rural areas that can't relate to one another. The country is divided into blue and red states that can't relate to one another. On top of that, you have hundreds of small factions, camps, and tribes all pining for themselves, often at the expense of others. Our two-party system doesn't really help matters. Ever divided and polarized, the representatives of the two parties rarely make any effort to meet each other in the middle, to compromise. There's no attempt to find common ground, and no room for give and take. The parties are too busy fighting and warring against each other to work together for the good of the country, which should kind of be their job. I don't know. Wouldn't it be nice to have a moderate third party that helped to build bridges and find common ground? Like a good middle child playing the role of mediator between an older and a younger sibling that are at each other's throats all the time? I don't know. There are also limitations with representation. The diversity of the people is always going to be greater than the diversity of the representation. This is simply due to the natural discrepancy in numbers between the people and the elected officials. There are too many groups to represent. On top of this issue, the quality of our representatives is dwindling. Representatives are more often elected because of their popularity, wealth, or lineage than because of their intelligence, moral aptitude, and character. And this means that many elected officials, like the general populace, are more concerned with self-interest than the common good. All of these things contribute to why I believe we currently have an unhealthy democracy. But the point of this podcast is not so much to provide the definitive solution, but to simply get people thinking. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what the solution is. I don't necessarily know that there is a good solution. I just know that the situation is not ideal and that there are a lot of contributing factors as to why this is. But I do think that many of our problems come down to general divisiveness and self-interest. And I do think that part of being a responsible citizen of a nation involves thinking about what is best for my country instead of simply thinking about what is best for myself. This is kind of what John F. Kennedy was getting at in his famous address. The JFK Library sums it up like this, quote, John F. Kennedy's inaugural address inspired children and adults to see the importance of civic action and public service. His historic words, quote, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, end quote, challenged every American to contribute in some way to the public good, end quote. I think finding common ground is something that alleviates both divisiveness and self-interest because it promotes unity and it forces us to think about others. I also believe that JFK was onto something when he tried to spur the country on to civic action and public service. Action and service that promotes the common good. There are many practical examples of this. And there are many concrete actions that we can take in our society. Volunteer activities and service projects are great avenues for unifying civic action and public service. You can partner up with an organization like Habitat for Humanity, which provides affordable housing. You can team up with a local food bank to help feed the hungry. You can become a part of a community garden, building community and working together by sharing produce and resources with your neighbors. You can get involved in clothing distribution, providing clothes for the needy. You can volunteer at a humane society, caring for animals. You can join a trash pickup team, caring for nature and public parks. And you can get involved in a neighborhood beautification project, which will contribute to the overall vitality and prosperity of your city. Despite our many differences, volunteer activities and service projects like these enable us to team up, partner together, and work hand in hand with others for the public good. In a fractured society, this is a great example of finding and rallying around common ground. Two people can be on the opposite sides of the fence on a host of issues and yet be unified on the general notions of helping others and building community. Participation in activities like these testify to the power of camaraderie and common ground. It speaks the powerful, profound, and beautiful word of unity to a divided world. So why should we get involved in activities like this? Well, it builds character in individuals and creates virtue in society. Unity, compromise, peace, selflessness, tolerance, generosity. It leads to noble and novel outcomes. Friendship, teamwork, partnership, prosperity, goodness, well-being, vitality, human flourishing. Responsible civic action and public service promotes the common good and the greater good. Doing the kind of work that JFK talked about is a powerful and transformative thing. We are doing a disservice to ourselves and to our communities by not pursuing common ground in this way. Our house is a divided one, and it's hard to see how it can continue to stand much longer. If we don't start finding common ground, we will only be hurting ourselves in the long run. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. This episode, and all episodes of Thinker Sensitive, are available at thinkersensitive.com, iTunes, Spotify, and more. If you enjoy our content and wish to donate to help us grow our online community of thinkers, please visit thinkersensitive.com.